Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Gianluca Ferreri. We will start in 1 or 2 minutes. We just leave people joining, just waiting for a few more to join, and then we will start with this Q&A session. Thank you. All right. Maybe we can kickstart. There will be probably more people to join, but let's already start with the Q&A. So welcome everybody, and happy to see the interest on this Q&A. So I'm Gianluca Ferreri, so head of sector of the renewable in CINEA, the unit dealing with the CBRS program. And together with me, there is Beatrice Coda, my head of unit, and Paul Grandeau, part of the renewable energy team, and Leonardo De Romano as well, part of our team today. So the format is fairly simple. The idea is to share via Slido your question. I presume you are all working into in the proposal drafting for the call. As a reminder, is you see it there. So the deadline it's on the 3rd of May. Some of you may have already started working in the portal, which is the one that you find in the call page link. So not the general EU grants e-grants portal. It's a specific one for the status call. Some may or may not have yet, and in that case, I just will encourage you to open your application so that you get familiar with the portal. It's fairly simple and straightforward, but at least you don't discover it in the last few days of the call. And in case you have questions also on the technical side on the use of the portal, you can still you are still on time. So the 3rd of May it's the deadline. It's still a couple of weeks to come. So feel free to use today's meeting as an opportunity to clarify all your outstanding questions. And also in the coming days, you can always send an email to our functional mailbox. And you can find the link directly in the call page. And we will reply as quick as possible. And if it is a general question, we can update also the FAQ. As I talk about the FAQ, again in the call page, you will find the PDF with the already existing FAQ list. It's a long list of maybe 40 plus questions. So the answer may already been there in case you haven't checked it. So feel free to download it and have a look. And otherwise, we can kickstart maybe with a Q&A. So the format, as I said, you can write your questions in Slido. There you can find a QR code of the event, and we will reply as extensive as possible. And in case there are any very specific question we are not able to answer right away, we'll come back to you in writing in the next few days. Maybe a first question on the cooperation agreement. So what is the required proof of cooperation arrangement between the involved countries? This is also a question that is covered in the FAQ for download. So there is no specific requirement in terms of format. The document, the structure of the document, and so there's no template. What is important is that the cooperation agreement, that the document is either a cooperation agreement or at least it includes the willingness to cooperate of both or more than, if there are more than two parties. So there is a clear willingness to enter into a cooperation agreement between the parties to support the CBRS project. So that's an important point. Cooperation agreement or a willingness to support to enter into a future cooperation agreement. So it doesn't have to be a fully fledged agreement once you submit the status quo. It can be also a more simple version of it, showing a clear willingness to enter into agreement. Then there might be, we had linked to that in the past, we had also question regarding the who should sign. It should be it's also covered in an FAQ, and it has to be a person that is entitled to commit the organization for which is working. So also there is expected to be a fairly high level, either at ministry level or at a civil servant level, but a level that can commit the organization. And it can be, normally it is a member state level, but in some cases, depending also the administrative structure of the member state, there's possibility that it is signed at regional level, for example, or subnational level, more generically. In that case, it should be clear that this level of the authority has the competency to deal with the matter in question of the project. So in general, energy related matters. So in that case, please attach also a proof of competence in the domain, or at least clear reference to the legislation where you clearly explain that there is a competence in the domain from the authority that has just signed and is supporting your project.
Is there another new question?
Yeah, so this is the case of cooperation with third countries, so European countries plus one or more third country who could sign that. Well, first of all, it's important to keep in mind the specific requirements for third country cooperation. So look at the article in the Renewable Energy Directive related to the third countries cooperation. So it's Article 11, if I'm not mistaken, and there are specific requirements in general to be considered cooperation with third countries as per Renewable Energy Directive. There should be a physical connection, so it's important to look at the content there. Then who should sign the declaration? Also in that case, it has to be an authority that is competent to engage the ministry in question or the country. So it is different from what is called member state letter of support. This is something different. Don't mix it up with when it comes to grants. Here it's really about cooperation agreement, so it has to be signed also from this side. So also for third countries, and it's also part in the current FAQ that can be downloaded in the website.
So it's the authority who's in charge of the cooperation agreement.
So, yeah, so it is really the authority that is in charge of the cooperation agreement. It is not predefined by the program. It is really up to the third country to tell us who is the authority, and then in that case, it is the one that should sign the cooperation agreement or the willingness, the declaration where it expresses the willingness to enter into an agreement. Okay, so this is more on CBA requirement regarding offshore projects with radial connection, whether there is any specific requirement for those projects. No, not specific requirement in this case. It is also covered in the is it question 43 of the FAQ, so you can find it. So no specific requirement. It's one of the possibilities for offshore project to have radial connection. In that case, you simply need to follow the various elements of the CBA, so the cost of grid-related costs, and for example, will be considered there when you quantify your element of the CBA. So no specific requirement depending on the connection. So just waiting for more questions, and if you have trouble in using Slido for the question, you can also use the chat, yeah, in the of the event. And I believe you can also raise your hand and ask for the floor, and you can open your microphone, and that's also an option. Okay, so one question regarding the functioning of the portal. So can I amend my application once it is submitted in the portal? The question, the answer is it depends on when we are talking about the amendment. So you can change anytime. Once you have submitted, you can reopen before the deadline. So you can draft, submit, and then if it is before the deadline, reopen your application, update it, add information, and then resubmit it again. Once the deadline of the 3rd of May is passed, if you have submitted your application before the deadline, the application cannot be withdrawn. If you haven't submitted, so you, for example, have reopened, well, if you want to have this last version as the one submitted, you need to submit it before. So remember about the deadline, 3rd of May at 5 p.m. Central European time, so Brussels time. Before that date, anything is possible. You can always erase your application and start from scratch if you don't want to keep a trace of an old version. That's everything possible. But after the deadline, that is not anymore possible. So the message here is use the portal as soon as possible, because anything that you submit today, you can be reopened tomorrow, amended, improved, and then resubmitted. Okay, there's a question about setup with cooperation with third countries. So, in case we are proposing an electricity interconnection between Morocco and Spain to trade with third countries, would all countries have to sign? It depends. It depends on the setup of the cooperation agreement. But in principle, if the cooperation agreement is only between Morocco and Spain, then we need only the signature from Morocco and Spain. Then the arrangement to, for example, where you sell the electricity with an extra third country, that is, well, it's of course part of the wider framework, but that given country doesn't have to sign unless it is a transit country. But this is another situation where the country is the country where it transits the electricity. So in that case, you need to have also the agreement of that given country.
But Morocco and Spain should not be the case.
But in this case, it's it looks like it should be only Morocco and Spain to sign the cooperation. Okay, maybe a point, extra point. We don't know, of course, the background of this specific case, but it has in the program. I mean, the really the center part is the renewable energy generation. So you need to ensure that within the project you come up with new extra renewable energy generation. So it is not just about transition of electricity typically. So the core part is the electricity generation, and then anything else that is listed also in the Delegated Act Article 2, if I'm not mistaken, it's about additional components. These are additional components. They can be part of it, but it has to comply with specific criteria. So and notably, they have to be considered ancillary to the rest of the application. So it means that they have to be necessary for the renewable energy generation to be there, and they shouldn't absorb the biggest part of the project. Okay, so the counterfactual is explained in the Commission staff working document that is also for download in the call page. The idea, I mean, I won't go into the detail and nitty gritty, but the idea is that your project via the CBAs, the cost benefit analysis, should come up with a net present value. So it's a global societal value that is positive. So it basically the benefit outweighs the cost, and this value is higher than a net present value of an hypothetical counterfactual project. So what it is, the counterfactual project? It is a hypothetical project that would be carried out should the cooperation be absent. So in the absence of the cooperation, if you had to carry out this a similar project, what would be the cost benefit analysis of this project? So it's comparing your project with an hypothetical project that wouldn't benefit from cooperation. Now there are two possibilities for the counterfactual. Either you come up with a standardized counterfactual or a project-specific counterfactual. If you can, the staff working documents is clear about that. If you can, privilege the standardized counterfactual. And what it is, the standardized counterfactual is basically a project that has the same or very similar technological setup of your CBRS project. So why it is let's say recommended to use this is because the standardized counterfactual, it is more easy, or it's more comparable to the cross-border one. Now, there are cases where you cannot come up with a standardized counterfactual. For example, you want to do in the CBRS project, you want to do an offshore project, offshore wind, but without the cooperation, you have no access to the sea. In this case, you cannot put a virtual project with offshore wind because of no access to the sea. So you need to change the technology. And for example, you choose onshore wind or another technology. Well, this is a project-specific counterfactual. So it is less comparable, but so it is a suboptimal choice. But if you justify that this is the only way, that's also an option. And the idea is to come up with so these two analyses, the CBA and of the project and the CBA of the counterfactual, and see which one is best. Why this setup is to really justify the cooperation. So showing a similar project at national level without cooperation, well, it ensures that there is a clear benefit in going through a cooperation project. I think there is a couple of FAQ also in the FAQ document on the counterfactual on that. Otherwise, I encourage you to have a look at the Commission staff working document. If not done, there is a specific chapter there explaining really more into detail the principle of the counterfactual. It's page 9 and 10 of the staff working document. Okay, there is a question on the energy generation cost to be less than 100,000 euro per megawatt. This is nothing to do with the CBRS program. It's a new call that was just opened yesterday on renewable energy financing mechanism. So it's really completely another program. It's not a requirement in this call. If you are interested there, by the way, there is an info day next week that will be taking place in Helsinki and online, so you can still register. Deadline for registration is tomorrow, end of the day. Okay, the results of the evaluation. So the evaluation will take place between May and June. And then there is an internal process to validate the new list in the Commission, in the European Commission. And we can expect the result in the second half of August. And then before that the new list enters into force, has to take place the so-called 2 months of non-objection period from the institutions, from the European Parliament and the Council. So with this timeline, the official entry into force of the new list it is expected to be in November, beginning of November, more or less. But the result itself, you will get it before. You will get it in August, second half of August. Okay, so this is about whether also third country can be project promoter. So if this can be selected as CBRS status. Yes, there's no restriction. So you can be a main promoter, so to say, can be an entity from a third country. But of course, in this case, there has to be at least one on the other side. So at least another member state, one member state EU member state in the cooperation agreement or in the declaration that you will submit. So no specific restriction for third country entities. Okay, we're just waiting for more question. Feel free to use both Slido or chat or raise your hand. Okay, so question regarding the setup of the project and the technology in it. So can the same project have photovoltaic, green hydrogen, and biomass components? Yes, you can combine several technologies. The technologies are the ones that are listed in the RED 2, Article 2, where you have the full list of the renewable energy technologies. It's a fairly long list. Green hydrogen per se is not renewable energy, but of course, if you say green hydrogen means that behind, you anticipate to produce it via renewable energy, or via, for example, electricity created via renewable energy sources. You can combine all these aspects or any other aspect that are relevant for your project. That's certainly possible, and in some cases, even the added value of the cross-border renewable energy project sometimes is really this, that allows to combine several technologies that in one single member state are not all available or not as efficient or as effective compared to the other member states. So yeah, and green hydrogen, again, green hydrogen is not renewable energy source per se. So it's to say a bioproduct. So it is considered an additional component. It means that it cannot be the main component of the project. And so the main component is, say, for example, the electricity generated via photovoltaic and biomass or other renewable sources, and the green hydrogen is an additional component of the project. Okay, so a question on agrovoltaics, so the combination of solar PV in agricultural area. How so agrovoltaic for creating circular economy, how should be presented? So I mean, the first thing is to show clearly that there is a renewable energy generation. Then I could imagine that some of the elements of the agrivoltaics can bring positive elements, positive benefits in the calculation of the cost-benefit analysis. So it depends on the cases, but there are elements regarding GSG emissions or air pollution avoidance. So all the environmental elements normally can have a plus there. When you talk about circular economy, there are probably some of these elements there. So it can be a plus, an extra plus in your in the CBA analysis. So anything that can enter in the elements listed in the staff working document that can be monetized, that would be my recommendation would be to include it in the CBA. And also qualitative elements like in the innovation, for example, since agrivoltaics is also a fairly new application. Well, that these are also qualitative elements, often not monetized, but can still be part of your narrative of the CBA. Yeah, we're still talking about projects that have a context of cooperation. So, of course, this all provided that the fundamental element of the call, which is really the renewable energy generation and the cooperation aspect, are really the pillar of your project.
That's all.
For the moment, we have no further question. We still have time. If you have other question, I wouldn't say it's now or never, but it's a good occasion. Still have 2 weeks.
Doesn't move on.
Okay, this is a question on the security of supply, which is element 7 of the CBA. How do you monetize security of supply in international electricity interconnection? And there's no specifically a distinction between within EU and outside, but it's well, typically the cooperation with third countries has probably the highest potential of increasing security of supply overall. Depends again on the setup of the project. This point is covered in the staff working document at the page 18, so I invite you to have a look at the detail. But yeah, the contribution, it says clearly that the contribution to security of supply should be assessed by estimating the value of change in energy import. So clearly the cooperation with third countries in this element of the CBA should capture yeah, the capacity of the member state to secure to secure production of renewable energy or sources related or electricity from renewable energy. So it is normally a positive value there.
So the imports that you substitute with the electricity.
Yeah, so maybe expanding a little bit on that, that you can really find everything in the detail of the staff working document, but it's really about monetizing how much, so how much the import are lowered by the energy input of the project as a domestic source of energy. So assuming that the quantity of the produced renewable energy and are fully consumed domestically. So of course it depends what is the setup of the project, but the idea is that via the CBRS project, you consume domestically the electricity produced, so you can monetize this in your CBA element. So sorry to come back on that again, but just to be really clear, thanks to the project, you reduce the amount of import of energy. So you secure a certain amount of electricity, in this case, that is consumed domestically. So you are increasing your security of supply of that given member state. Question about the timeline for results. So yeah, you will have the information, so concretely a letter stating whether the project has been selected for the list, for the status in the second half of August. This is what is expected. So, okay, dates are everything to be confirmed, but this is indicative. But second half of August, your letter. Then in September, we get in touch. We will have a first meeting with the projects that are selected. And then in November, the list should enter into force officially in the EU journal. Starting from there, you can apply for the first available call for studies and works for CEF granting. And maybe also link to that in case as we had several times the question about whether you should apply at the first call available, or you can also wait. And if you wait, what happened to your project, so you don't lose the possibility to reapply. So there will be the first call. It is the tentative planning will be to open the first works and study call in November as well. So in case you are selected, you can already in the next call in November, December to be decided on the exact date. You can submit or apply for CEF grant. If you are not ready, you can also wait the following call, etc. So as long as the project advances, so keeps on implementing, you can always stay in the list. There are specific conditions to stay in the list, but basically means that the project is not changing its nature radically, and or the project is on hold, is not advancing, so it's not showing any advancement in the implementation over the years. But otherwise, you don't have to reapply to stay in the list. Yeah, we were discussing about this question because it is unclear what it exactly means. So please, either in the chat or in the slide, or can you reformulate or to understand what is meant? If you mean, so are the memorandum of understanding valid for sharing the promotions so that you could benefit from partners with much more experience?
Let them rephrase.
Yeah, if you can rephrase, because we're not sure we understand the question. About the CBRS project that are already approved, you can access to the project which are published in the transparency platform database. But typically, if they have a memorandum of understanding on these projects, normally, well, these are not usually not, yeah, if not necessarily open documents, but we can see at each of the cases. But maybe this was not the question. So if you can reformulate, we will try to answer. Or for further explain in the chat, maybe.
Very good.
Okay, sorry, we were also trying to interpret the question. So if you want to cooperate with CINEA to promote the program, is this the question? That's always possible. But then, yeah, we can get in touch bilaterally. But not necessarily is the question.
There is a Simo, CH.
Okay, there's a hand up. Simo CH. Can you try to unmute?
Hiya. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, now it's unmuted. Can you speak? Because we don't hear you yet.
Okay, now? What about now? Hello?
Okay, try.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I was the one who was asking about an interconnection between Morocco and Spain. So the fact is that we are a new European economic interest grouping, and we know that you've got to give a punctuation, and we are just a new company. So we don't know if a memorandum of understanding signed with a very big company, with a multinational, would be enough to have that points in the experience.
Okay.
Yeah, then the
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, in that case, would be probably better also to look for other promoters in your in the consortium. You can create a consortium there. But it's true that it's for the operation. So to prove that you have enough experience, in that case, it's probably better to have at least some more experienced partner in your consortium.
Thank you.
Simo, your hand is still up. You want to complement? No. Okay. Okay, 10 minutes left. We'll have time for your questions. Feel free to use both or any of the channel, your hands up or Slido or chat. Maybe one point that came to my mind, I was talking about, well, the very first question on the cooperation agreement. In the call page, you also find, so there is no requirement on the format, but if you don't have a cooperation agreement, there is also a Annex 3, which is a template that you can use. It's not mandatory, but you can use to sign the declaration. So that's an option. Again, it's not a mandatory template, but that's an option in case you don't have a specific if there's no already cooperation agreement, or you don't know, what kind of format to use, the one that you can find for download. So there are mandatory annexes to be downloaded in the call page, and there are annexes like this one that is a courtesy version, so to say, so you can use it, or if you have your own template, you can use your own template. Maybe another important point in the call text, you may have seen it or not, depending if you already started working on the portal. There is also the submission platform user manual in the call page. So as soon as you start really actively working on the portal, in case you have questions on how to fill in this or that question, or what is this validation rule, or what is this error message that gives me the platform, so you can find the answers also in the submission platform user manual. So feel free to use it. Okay, last chance for questions. Doesn't seem the case. Okay, in case you have questions, in any case, in the call web page, you can find the FAQ PDF for downloads. And if you don't find your answer in the FAQ document, you are welcome to get in touch with us at the functional mailbox or CEF Renewables. You can find also the direct link in the call page. The deadline is on the 3rd of May. I repeat, at 5 p.m. Don't wait until the last minute. You can always submit something a couple of days before or even 3 days before, and then you have secured your version, and you can still come back to put the last improve the last elements of your project, but at least you secure one version in the system, because then after will be too late. So I repeat the selection time. So you will have the information in second half of August, and then normally the next call for studies and works on which the selected project or status can participate should open in November this year. If there are no more questions, not in the chat, I think we can close this Q&A. Thank you for having participated to it, having raised your questions. We wish you the best of luck for your project and the final 2 weeks of fine-tuning of your proposal. And we stay available in case you may need any support or questions on technical aspect on the platform, submission platform, or any other question related to the content, in case you can find your answer in the documents. Otherwise, hopefully we will get in touch in the second half of August with a positive outcome. So all the best of luck to you, and see you at the next early occasion. Thank you.